decades.
Welcome to the
The
deep
U.S.
dive.
government line was
We
basically
dig through the reports, the research,
supernatural stuff, psychic
all the
powers,
background noise,
telepathy,
to bring
seeing
you the
things
real
far away
story
with your
behind
mind.
some of the world's
Pure
biggest
fantasy.
mysteries.
That's what they
And
told
today
everyone.
we're
Yeah,
heading
that was the
deep
public face.
underwater,
Complete
off the coast of Cuba,
skepticism.
actually.
But
Yeah,
you know,
thousands
while
of
that was
feet
the official
down
story,
into a mystery
behind
that
closed
surfaced
doors,
back in
something
2001.
well, something
And
much
then
stranger was
just
apparently
vanished.
going on.
If it's
Deep
true,
inside
well,
the
it
intelligence
should have changed
community.
everything we thought
It's
we
a
knew
really
about
interesting
human history.
contrast.
It really
isn't
should have.
We're
Publicly,
talking
it's
about
all
the
scientific
supposed
dismissal.
Cuban pyramid,
Privately,
or
the Pentagon,
really a whole
the CIA.
complex of structures found.
They're clearly
near
wrestling
the
with something very
Guanahawk
different.
Peninsula.
These fantasies
Deep,
suddenly
deep
become
down.
Okay, so let's paint the picture.
a
It's
serious
2001.
strategic issue.
A Canadian
Exactly.
company, Advanced
And that
Digital
worry, that sort of
Communications,
creeping
ADC,
fear
right?
about psychic warfare,
Led
it leads
by
to one
Paulina
of the
Zalitsky, a
honestly
marine
most
engineer,
bizarre
and Paul
and top
Weinstein.
secret
They were
projects
doing
of the whole
survey
Cold
work.
War.
Just a
Project
routine job,
Sunstreak.
mapping
I mean,
the
just
seabed.
picture it.
They weren't
An
looking
actual
for lost
government
cities or
project
anything
trying to
like that. They
weaponize
had
the
this,
human mind.
funded off
Advanced
the
sonar
post.
tech.
Totally
And that's when
And
things got
officially, the
weird.
cover
Their
story, or
sonar
maybe the
maps
initial idea
way
was
down at 2300
remote
feet
viewing.
started showing.
This
well, not just seabed, they
supposed
showed structures.
ability for trained
Massive
people to
geometric
just
form.
Like a city grid.
perceive
Sort of,
distant
yeah.
places,
A very
secret
ordered
enemy
layout,
bases, maybe
you know?
even peek into the
Something
future.
that didn't look natural.
All just using
And
their
Zalitsky
minds.
herself, her
And we should be
descriptions
clear,
were
this wasn't some
pretty
like
wild. She
side
mentioned
hobby. It wasn't just a
smooth,
few folks
cut,
messing around.
granite-like
This was a
blocks.
strategic move, a
Forming
direct
huge
response
shapes.
to what they thought the Soviets were
Pyramids,
doing.
possibly?
They were urgently
tall
trying
as,
to get
what,
an edge
150
in a
feet?
completely new
and
kind
arranged
of,
deliberately, like
battlefield.
roads
And that's what we're doing
plazas
today. We're
connecting
going to
them.
peel back
the
those
early
layers
sonar
of
images,
secrecy.
though they're fuzzy,
Really
they just don't
deep
scream
dive into
natural
Project
formation. They look
Sunstreak
designed.
and
Well,
the
the
kind of
initial
wild
reaction
conspiracy
professionally
theories that
was
are still
split.
swirling around.
You had
Yeah,
awe,
because the
obviously,
story
but
goes
also
way
immediate
beyond
skepticism.
just
I mean, the
psychic
ocean
spying.
floor
Oh,
is full of
absolutely.
strange shapes.
It might have cracked open the
volcanoes,
door
geology
to,
can
well,
trick you.
alien
Sure.
contact,
But the
maybe
scale
even
here
some
and the
sources
order,
suggest
the right
interdimensional
angles, the
conflict.
grid
It gets pretty
patterns
out
Zalitsky
there.
described,
really
it's
does.
much
So we're
harder
gonna
to
look
just
at where it
brush
came
off
from, the
as,
really
you know, a pile
unsettling
of
things that
rocks.
viewers
Which is why
reported
intelligent
seeing,
design came up
the,
right away.
Exactly.
weird overlaps
So our
with
mission
old
today
occult
really is
stuff
to unpack this.
and these
First,
incredible
the
claims
sheer
about
impossibility of it,
contacting
based on what
well,
we think
the
we know
unknown.
about history.
So yeah,
And
settle
second,
in.
the
This
really
is where
baffling
things get
part.
weird. So where
Why
did
did this
Sunstreak
massive
even
story
come from?
just
It really
disappear?
kicks off
Poof.
back in the early 70s.
Gone from the
There was
headlines
this
almost
sort of
overnight.
If
quiet
this is a
panic
city,
brewing
it blows
in
accepted
the
timelines out of
intelligence
the
world
water.
during the Cold
It
War.
forces
Right.
us
Word
to
got out
question
that the
when
Soviets
complex
were pouring
civilization actually
serious
started.
money and effort
And that
into
brings us straight
parapsychology.
to
And not
the
just
biggest
dabbling.
hurdle.
We're talking
The age.
state-sponsored
This
experiments.
is the core problem for
telepathy,
mainstream
moving
archaeology.
objects with
Okay,
the mind,
explain the timeline
psychokinesis,
issue.
and
How
crucially,
significant is that
remote
depth?
viewing.
Yeah, and when
2,300
U.S.
feet
intelligence
in terms of
picked up on
geology and
this,
sea level.
alarms went off.
Geologically,
Big time.
land
The
that deep
Pentagon,
hasn't been
especially.
You can
above
imagine the
water
fear,
for a
right?
very,
What if this
very
stuff is
long
real?
time.
Even if it only gives
since
a small
the end of the
advantage.
last
Exactly.
ice age,
The
basically.
U.S.
We're
could be
talking maybe
completely
12,000
blindsided
years
in
ago,
a
perhaps
conflict
even
that
longer
doesn't
for that
use
specific
bombs
area.
or spies in
So
the
for people to
traditional
have built
sense.
something
So
there,
this perceived threat,
Conservatively,
this
for a
potential
large,
psychic
organized
gap,
society
leads
to build
directly to the
complexes
CIA
like the
starting
ones
Project
described,
Stargate.
the site
Which
would
was
have to
kind
be
of the
at least
umbrella
6,000
program. And
years
under
old.
Stargate, you get
Minimum.
these sub-projects.
And potentially much
Project
older than
Sunstreak
that.
was one
Okay,
of
hang
them,
on.
run by the
6,000 years
Defense
minimum.
Intelligence
But our
Agency,
standard
the
history
DIA,
books, they say
mostly
the
through the
first big
1980s.
urban civilizations, the ones
So
building
Sunstreak
pyramids
gets
and
going.
massive structures.
And
Like
on
Mesopotamia,
paper,
Egypt, the
its
Indus
job
Valley.
sounds
they started around
well,
5,000
almost
years ago.
straightforward
So this
for that
Cuban world,
site.
if real,
Recruit people,
predates them by
train
at least
them
a
as
millennia.
remote viewers,
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
get
That's
them to
the
project
timeline
their
conflict.
consciousness,
It doesn't just
basically,
nudge the dates back.
and spy
It
on
shatters
Soviet
the whole
facilities,
established sequence.
gather intel.
And think about
Standard
the type
espionage,
of construction,
just with a very
Quarrying,
unconventional
cutting,
method.
stacking
But that's not how it played
huge
out,
granite
was it?
blocks
It became
onto
clear pretty
150-foot
fast this wasn't
pyramids.
just about finding
That
missile
suggests an
silos.
engineering
No, almost
skill
right away,
that,
the viewers
according
weren't
to the
just
standard
describing,
model,
simply
submarine
shouldn't have
pens or
existed
radar
back then.
installations. The
So
data
with that
start
kind of
getting
age, that kind of mystery,
Weird how.
did the
Well, that
Atlantis
was the big
connection
turning
come
point,
up
really.
immediately?
The viewers
Oh,
started
instantly.
reporting
That
things
was the headline
based
grabber,
on our
wasn't it?
normal
The media
understanding
jumped
of
right
physics and
on it, and you
reality
can
just
see why.
shouldn't exist.
Play the
Things
story.
that shouldn't
Yeah,
exist.
Plato's
Okay,
Timaeus
now we're
and
getting
Critias.
somewhere.
He
Yeah,
describes
the
Atlantis
information
as
they
this
were bringing
incredibly
back was
powerful
pushing
naval
way past the
civilization.
boundaries of what anyone
Huge
expected.
temples, pyramids, pyramids,
it fundamentally
complex
challenged
layouts,
what the program
all
was even
destroyed
supposed
in
to
a
be
cataclysmic flood.
So tell me about
So
these
when
viewers.
Zelensky's
They
team
weren't just
starts
random
talking
people
about
off the
huge
street, right?
geometric
Yeah.
complexes
Many had military
submerged under
backgrounds.
the
That's
sea.
right.
The
Often
parallels are
military
obvious,
personnel.
but is it just lazy
And they went through this
sensationalism,
really
or is there more
specific,
to it?
Well, that's the
structured
question.
training.
Are there actual overlaps
controlled
beyond
protocols
just
was
Sunken
the term.
City?
Like
There are
coordinate
some
remote
interesting
viewing
points.
or
Plato mentioned a
CRV.
very
CRV, okay.
organized,
So it
almost
wasn't just
grid-like city
like
structure.
closing your eyes and hoping
That
for
kind
the
of
best.
echoes
No,
the
no,
sonar
very
readings,
systematic.
but
They
maybe
might
more
be given
importantly,
just a set of
you have to look at the local
coordinates or
context,
maybe
the
a random
indigenous
number
traditions.
linked
Right,
to
not
a
just Greek
target.
myths. What
Then
about
they'd go through
Caribbean
these
and Central
stages,
American
sort of
stories?
drilling down,
Think about
describing
Mayan
sensory
cosmology.
details,
It's
sketching
full of cycles,
impressions,
worlds created
trying
and
to
destroyed,
build
often
a
by
picture
massive
of a
floods,
target they knew nothing
and
about
many
consciously.
local legends from
Often
various
something
tribes in the
hidden
region
miles away, maybe
speak
even
of a
sealed
great
in an
sunken
envelope
landmass,
right there in the
a kind
room.
of mother
did it work
civilization.
initially?
Sometimes
Well,
it's
the
even called
early
a
results
Caribbean
were
Atlantis.
apparently
So
Hmm.
this
intriguing,
discovery down there in the
impressive
depths,
maybe,
it suddenly
but small
gives a
scale.
potential physical
You know,
anchor anchor
sketches
to
that
those
looked
old
surprisingly
stories.
like a Soviet
It suggests maybe
factory.
they aren't just myths,
Details about a
but,
hidden bunker
distorted
that later
memories
matched
of
spy
real
photos.
geological events,
Enough
real
to keep
lost
the funding
lands.
flowing.
It's fascinating. It
Definitely.
ties
Okay,
into
so
this
it had
idea
some
that
legs.
maybe
Yeah.
flood
But
myths
then, like you said,
worldwide are
things
actually
took a
echoes
turn.
of
A sharp
genuine
turn, yeah, because it's
catastrophes
one thing to sketch a
sea
building
levels
you
rose
shouldn't know
dramatically,
about. It's something else
after the
entirely
Ice
when
Age.
you're
It
trained
builds a
military
case for a
viewers
much
start
older,
reporting
perhaps
experiences
global
that just
pattern of advanced
flat
human
out defy
settlements
the
in
material
areas that are
world
now
as we know it.
underwater.
But
what kind of
if
things?
the evidence is
Well,
potentially that
get this,
earth-shattering,
some viewers
why
started
the
reporting
silence?
Yeah, let's get
energy
into that.
beings.
The Vanishing
Yeah.
Act.
Not
It's almost
people, not
spookier than
animals,
the
just
discovery
conscious
itself.
energy
Yeah.
forms
After
that
that
were
first
apparently
burst of
watching them
excitement,
while they
just
were doing the remote
stopped.
viewing.
Watching the viewers. Okay, that's
Ooh,
crazy.
exactly went
Others
quiet.
claimed
Pretty
they
much
weren't just
everyone
moving
involved, it
across
seems.
space, but
The
across
Cuban government
time,
initially
getting
sounded
glimpses of
interested,
ancient history
maybe even
or even
supportive,
future
but then
events.
apparently
Time
communication just dried up. That's what they
Okay.
reported.
What about
There's one
international
really
researchers?
famous
Surely
or
scientists would be
infamous
clamoring to
account.
get down there.
A viewer
There were reports
insisted
of
they
interest,
saw
yeah,
the Egyptian
from the
pyramids
U.S.,
being
other
built,
places,
but not by
academics, maybe even
Egyptians,
government bodies,
by quote,
but
nothing
tall,
materialized.
luminous entities.
No major follow-up
Luminous
expeditions
entities
were
building the
announced. And
pyramids. I
crucially,
mean, that sounds like
Zalitsky
something
and
from a
Weinswag themselves
fringe
became
documentary.
much less
Exactly,
public
except
after
these
those
were
initial
reports coming from
interviews.
Now, the
within a
skeptics,
classified
their
military
argument is
intelligence
straightforward
program.
enough, right?
That's what
No
makes you
physical
stop
proof.
and
Correct. They'd
Yeah,
say sonar
definitely.
images can
Any
be
other
misleading.
examples?
Oh, yeah.
Natural formations
Another one,
can look
just as
artificial.
strange.
A
Until
viewer
someone
claimed
claimed
they
they
found
found
hidden
hidden
actual
spacecraft
footage, maybe
under the
recovered
ice
an artifact.
in Antarctica.
It's all just speculation.
Which is a fair
Oh.
point, scientifically
Like
speaking.
UFOs.
You need hard
seems
evidence.
to be the
It is.
implication.
But what
and
doesn't make
guarded
sense is
apparently
the sheer lack
by some kind
of
of
follow-up.
If the
Consciousness
claims
that
are so
resisted
extraordinary,
intrusion, like a
why
psychic
wouldn't a
guard
major
dog, but
institution,
not a dog,
Okay,
a
wow.
university,
So these reports,
an
were they just
oceanographic
ignored,
institute,
filed away
even
as
a
crazy?
government
Well,
fund
officially,
and
a lot of this
expedition
stuff was
just probably
probably
downplayed or
Right, to prove it's
buried,
just
gasified
rocks.
deep.
Yeah.
But
The
inside
cost,
the project,
while significant,
the
seems
whispers
small
started.
compared to the potential
The
payoff.
idea took hold that
Either you
maybe
confirm
remote
the biggest
viewing wasn't
archaeological
just about
find in
spying on the
history,
Soviets
or you
anymore.
definitively
Maybe.
solve a huge
Maybe it was about
mystery.
making
The
contact.
silence,
This is where it gets
the
even
refusal
stranger,
to
right?
even look
The connection
properly,
or the apparent
that's
connection
what
to
feeds the suspicion.
occult
It makes
practices.
it feel like someone doesn't
Yes,
want
that's
it looked
another
at too
layer to
closely.
this whole thing,
Which
is
leads us into the
fascinating.
suppression theories.
People
Why
within
would
the
anyone
program
want this
apparently
buried?
started
Let's
noticing
break down the
these
main ideas.
disturbing
Okay,
parallels
category 1 is probably
between
the
the
most
remote
straightforward.
viewing techniques
Historical
they were developing
upheaval.
and refining.
The idea
and
that the truth is
practices
just
found
too
in
disruptive
really
for our
old
established view of the
occult
past.
traditions.
Exactly.
Occult
Imagine
traditions
confirming
like
a sophisticated
that.
civilization
Methods
existed
described in
6,000,
esoteric
maybe
orders.
8,000, maybe
Groups like the
10,000 years
Hermetic
ago.
Order of the
What
Golden
does that
Dawn
do?
or
It
the
upends everything.
Rosicrucians.
Archaeology,
They were looking at
history,
rituals for
the
astral
whole
projection,
timeline of human
achieving
development.
trance states.
It's not just adjusting
intense
dates.
visualization
It forces a
exercises,
total
the
rethink.
whole idea
Where
of
did they come
separating your
from?
consciousness
How did they
from your
achieve that
physical
level of
body.
engineering?
Wait,
Why
so the
did they
technique
vanish?
Sunstreak was
Why
teaching
did
its
human
military
history
viewers.
seem to
almost
directly
reset itself
mirror
afterwards
these
for
ancient
thousands of
mystical
years?
practices?
And it
It's
wouldn't
quite
just rattle
striking when you put them
academics,
side
would
by
it?
side.
So the question
about
becomes,
religious narratives.
was the Pentagon,
creation
was the
stories
DIA
tied to specific
inadvertently
timelines?
stumbling
Absolutely.
onto
Any
or maybe
institution,
rediscovering
scientific,
some kind of
religious,
ancient
political,
technique,
whose
something
authority
mystics
rests
and
on a
secret
particular
societies have been
understanding of
using for
history
centuries.
might
That's the
feel
implication,
deeply
yeah.
threatened by
Was
something
this
that pulls the
military
rug out
intelligence
from under
program
that
actually
narrative?
an unwitting
So maybe the
or
easiest
maybe
thing
witting
is
occult experiment?
Okay, that's one angle. What's category 2? And it
Category
didn't stop
2
there,
moves
did it?
into the realm
The
of
experiences
technology.
got darker.
The idea here isn't
some
just that the
viewers
structures
started
are
reporting
old, but that they're
encounters
too
with
advanced for
actively
any
hostile
known
presences.
ancient
Well,
human
hostile,
culture.
based on those
They
descriptions,
describe,
the smooth surfaces,
entering
the
a
precise
location
angles.
mentally,
Yes.
projecting
Zelensky
their
mentioned
consciousness
materials
there
that seemed
only to
almost
be
like
confronted,
granite,
not
but
by
precision
human guards,
implied something
but by
beyond
what they described as
primitive
stone
shadowy
tools.
entities.
Some
Things
theories
that
speculate
seemed
about lost
fully aware of their
technologies,
psychic
sonic
intrusion
drilling,
and actively tried
resonance,
to block
things
them
we're only
or
starting
push
to
them out.
explore
Aware of
now
them.
being used
Yeah.
back
Like
then.
psychic
And
guards.
this is where you get the
Essentially,
connections
yes,
to
which raises a
other
really
sites globally,
profound
right? The
and
pyramid
frankly
phenomenon.
Unsettling possibility.
Egypt,
Which is?
Mesoamerica.
Well, if the human
maybe
mind
even
can actually
China,
travel
you see these
outside the
massive,
body,
sophisticated
maybe
stone
those
structures
non-physical
popping up.
realms aren't empty. Maybe
This
other
theory
intelligences
suggests it
already
wasn't
live there.
And maybe they
independent
don't
invention
appreciate
everywhere,
visitors.
but maybe evidence
Exactly.
of a shared
Entities that
blueprint.
really
Shared
didn't
from
want
where?
people like the
A
Sunstreak
lost
viewers
global
poking
human
around. It makes you wonder,
civilization.
was
Or
Sunstreak opening doors that
something
had been
else.
deliberately
Well, that's
shut
where it gets more
for a very
speculative.
long
Some
time,
argue
for a
it
good
points
reason.
to a
Okay,
highly
so if they were
advanced,
opening doors,
forgotten human society that was
What
wiped
exactly
out.
did
Others
they find
take
on
it
the
further.
other towards non-human involvement?
Because some of the most sensational
that
claims
hypothesis
are
often
about
comes up, yeah.
Yeah.
And the
aliens,
sources sometimes point to the location that the
Absolutely.
Caribbean
This
as
is where the
fuel for
story
this
really
idea.
goes into
How
high
so?
gear.
The region,
We actually have
especially around
declassified
Cuba and the deep
documents,
trenches
fragments,
nearby,
hints
has a
really that
reputation in
suggest
UFO
some
UP
remote
circles
viewing
as a
sessions were
hotspot for
specifically
USOs
targeting
unidentified
Mars.
submerged
Mars.
objects.
like
Reports,
the planet
though obviously
Mars.
The
unverified,
planet Mars.
talk about
There's
strange
one
crafts seen
particularly
entering or
famous
leaving the
session
water.
often cited.
So if you
where a viewer
entertain
gave
that
this
possibility,
incredibly detailed
the
description.
Cuban site might not
They
just be
claimed
ruins.
they were
it could be a
observing
marker,
Mars
an energy
millions
node,
of
maybe
years
even
ago.
an active
Millions.
base.
And they
that
described seeing
completely
these
changes the
tall
game,
beings
leading us to the
sheltering
third
inside
category.
massive
Category
pyramidal
3,
structures.
Pyramids on
geopolitical
Mars.
and
Pyramids on
military
Mars,
control.
as their planet was
This
dying
argues
around
the
them.
silence isn't about history,
Civilization
it's
facing
about power and
Wow.
technology.
Exactly.
That's
Those
quite a claim.
structures aren't
It
just
is, and
inert
it wasn't just
stone. What
Mars.
if they
Other
contained
sessions
allegedly
something
targeted
more.
well-known UFO
Functional
hotspots and
technology.
crash sites on
An
Earth,
unknown
including
power
Roswell.
source.
Of course, Roswell had to
Ancient
be
energy
there.
systems, perhaps.
And viewers
linked to,
reportedly described seeing non-human bodies, alien
Suddenly, it's not an
artifacts, all hidden
archaeological
away
site
deep
anymore.
inside
It's a
classified
potential
government
strategic
facilities.
asset. So
Or
not
a
just
threat.
seeing things
Precisely.
far
And
away,
remember where it is,
but seeing
right off the
things
coast
the
of
government
Cuba,
was actively
historically
hiding.
a geopolitical
That's the claim.
flashpoint
It
right
suggests
in
the
the US's
viewers weren't
backyard
just
with
passive
complex
observers.
history involving
They were
Russia, too.
potentially
Cold War
uncovering
echoes.
evidence
If there's
of an
even a
alien
hint of
presence
advanced
that was being
technology,
actively
exotic materials,
concealed.
unique
And then
energy
there's Wright
signatures
Patterson
down
Air
there,
Force Base,
it becomes
right?
instantly
Always
classified.
comes up in these
Every
stories.
major power would want to
Wright
know about
Patterson.
it, control it
Another
if
chilling
possible,
account
and
involved
deny it
a
to
viewer
rivals.
who
So
claimed
in
they
the scenario,
psychically
the
entered
silence
a
is
hidden
deliberate
chamber
policy.
deep underground
Shut down
there.
public curiosity,
Containers
send in the classified
holding
subs, and
biological
keep it all under wraps for
specimens
national
that were
security
completely
reasons.
unlike
It makes a
anything
kind of
known on
cold,
Earth.
Alien
strategic
bodies,
sense.
basically.
You wouldn't
That's
announce to the
the
world that
strong
you'd found
implication.
potential
And
alien
another
tech
viewer,
or a
possibly
revolutionary
targeting the
energy
same
source
location
off
or a
Cuba's
similar
coast,
one,
would you?
claimed
You'd
they
lock it
witnessed
down.
some kind of
The
psychic
narrative
network.
control comes
something
from
connecting
controlling the
human minds
access
to
and the data.
well, something
chilling
else,
thought,
something
a
beyond our
discovery
world,
that
out
could
among the
rewrite our
stars.
origins, psychic being treated network like a connecting military us to secret. aliens.
That was the
But that
report. So you look at all these
persistent,
accounts together:
unexplained
Mars,
silence.
Roswell, Wright Patterson's psychic
It makes you
networks.
wonder. It
And
paints a
Cuba
very
isn't
different
alone
picture
in this
than
type
just
of
spying on the
mystery.
Soviets.
The source is often
Completely
connected
different.
to a
If you
broader
take these
pattern.
reports at face
Other
value, even just
underwater
partially,
anomalies.
Like Yonaguni
the
in
implication
Japan.
is huge.
Exactly, that massive
Project
stone
Sunstreak
structure off the Japanese
might have
coast is
started
like
as
steps,
espionage,
terraces,
but it seems
maybe
to
a
have
pyramid.
It became
Hugely
about
controversial,
preparing
of course,
for
natural or
contact with
man-made.
non-human
And there are
intelligence.
others.
Submerged
Or
ruins
maybe more
near
cynically,
Alexandria and
about
Egypt
making
are
sure that
well
contact
documented.
remained a
And then there's
secret,
the Bimini
kept
Road in
far
the
away
Bahamas,
from the
that
public
strange
eye.
pavement.
But the
like
theories don't
formation
even stop
underwater.
at just
Again,
ETs
debated,
from other
but
planets, do they?
intriguing.
Some
So when
people
you
take
put
it even
Cuba
further,
That's
alongside
right. There's a
Yonaguni,
whole other branch of
Bimini,
theory
maybe
suggesting
others.
Sunstreak
What's
wasn't
the
just
picture that
encountering
emerges?
extraterrestrials.
It suggests
but
a global
potentially
pattern.
Interdimensional
Potential
evidence of
Interdimensional,
sophisticated
like, from
societies
parallel
existing when
so
sea
for
levels were much
decades,
lower,
right,
maybe
the
during
U.S.
or
government
just
line
after
was
the last ice
basically
age. It makes those
supernatural
widespread
stuff,
flood myths
psychic
sound
powers,
less like
telepathy,
pure fantasy
seeing
and
things
more
far
like
away with your
folk
mind.
memories.
Pure
Memories of
fantasy,
actual
that's what they told
world-changing
everyone.
cataclysms
Yeah, that was the public
that
phase.
submerged
Complete
coastal
skepticism.
civilizations.
But
leaving only
while
the
that was the
biggest,
official story,
most durable
behind
structures
closed doors,
behind,
something
hidden beneath the waves.
something
It
much
puts the
stranger
Cuban
was
pyramid
apparently
story
going
right at the
on.
heart of this
Deep
huge
inside
debate
the
about our hidden
intelligence
history,
community.
about who controls
It's a
the
really
narrative
interesting
of our
contrast,
past.
isn't it?
What really stands
Publicly,
out is
it's
the
all
idea that
scientific
maybe it's not
dismissal.
just ruins down
Privately,
there.
the
What if it's an
Pentagon, the
archive?
CIA.
Right. What if that
They're
ancient
clearly
culture
wrestling with
intentionally
something very
preserved
different.
records,
These
artifacts, maybe
fantasies
even
suddenly
technology?
become
If that's the case,
a
then the
serious
silence isn't
strategic
just about
issue.
hiding
Exactly.
the past. It's
And
about
that
controlling
worry, that
access
sort of
to
creeping fear about
potentially
psychic
transformative
warfare, it
knowledge
leads to
or
one of the
power.
honestly
the final
most
question we leave
bizarre
with
and
you, the
top-secret
listener,
projects
is
of the
really
whole
about
Cold
that
War.
silence.
Project Sunstreak.
Do you buy
Let me
the
just
simple
picture
explanation
an actual government
that it's
project
just
trying to weaponize
ambiguous
the human
sonar,
mind, funded off
geological
books,
quirks,
totally secret.
and maybe
And
bureaucratic
officially, the
inertia?
cover story, or maybe
Too
the initial
expensive, too
idea
difficult
was
to investigate.
remote war.
Right.
Does the coordinated quiet, the lack of
so
serious
for
follow-up,
decades, right,
point towards
the
something
U.S.
more
government
deliberate?
line was
An act of
basically
suppression, maybe by governments or powerful
supernatural
groups,
stuff, psychic
aimed at
powers,
keeping a lid on a
telepathy,
truth they
seeing
feel
things
is too
far away with your
destabilizing.
mind.
A
Pure
truth about our
fantasy,
deep
that's what they
history,
told everyone.
our
Yeah, that was the
potential,
public face.
maybe even our
Complete
place in the
skepticism.
cosmos.
But
What do we lose
while that was the official
collectively
story,
when parts of our
behind
history
closed
might
doors,
be deliberately
something
kept in the dark? Something
much
something to think
stranger
about.
was apparently